Today's review is sponsored by Cannibal Cook-Off, the new hit reality TV show. Make a great dish or become one. The real challenge is cooking a gluten-free person. Take that joke how you wish.
Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Blood and Black Lace. All praise Mario Bava, one of the most important directors in Italian horror. His movies were so influential to Italian horror movies. Many people consider him the Italian Hitchcock, and many people see him as the one who created the Giallo movie. I love Giallo movies, or Gialli if you want to give the correct plural. Mario Bava created the first two entries into this genre. In 1963, he made The Evil Eye, aka The Girl Who Knew Too Much, and then in 1964 he made Blood and Black Lace, which has a lot of the tropes that we would then see in later Giallo movies. Blood and Black Lace also had a major influence on the slasher genre. I've got plenty to say about that, but we'll talk about the plot first and then we'll get into it. So let's get into the plot. So, Blood and Black Lace is a murder mystery. It takes place in this house of high fashion run by Countess Christina Como. But yeah, this is a fashion house. You have all these models going around, they're preparing for various fashion shows, they're preparing all these outfits and stuff. But one night, this young model named Isabella is brutally murdered by this mysterious masked killer. As the police are investigating her murder, one of her fellow models finds Isabella's diary, which contains some scandalous evidence that reveals who her killer is. It also has information on various other people in the fashion house, which they would rather not have revealed. So the diary is getting passed around from person to person as they're trying to hide their secrets that are in this diary, and as the diary is getting passed around, the killer is killing various models as he's searching for the diary. Before we get into it, I've just gotta say I love the title, Blood and Black Lace. I just love Giallo movie titles. I mean, you do have some basic titles like Torso and Opera, both great movies, but with, pretty basic titles. But you also have these great titles like Death Walks in High Heels and Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. I'm sorry, I just love Giallo titles. But I really want to talk about the legacy of Blood and Black Lace. Not only the influence it had on Giallo movies, but the influence it had on the slasher genre. While Evil Eye was technically the first Giallo movie, Blood and Black Lace was the film that really set up the tropes that we would see in many Giallo films to come. You have the mysterious killer, usually seen wearing black leather gloves. The dark figure seen wearing a hat and a trench coat that we would see in many Giallo flicks. Something that's very common in Giallo cinema is an element of beauty. These films are filmed in beautiful locations. They have these gorgeous looking set designs, and the cinematography is so nice to look at. A very common staple in Giallo flicks is beauty mixed with the macabre. You have the beautiful locations and the beautiful cinematography mixed with these very brutal kills. You know, it's the pleasant imagery mixed with the violent imagery. That's something you see in many Giallo films. And Blood and Black Lace was the first movie in this genre to really grab hold of that. Blood and Black Lace is one of the most gorgeous-looking horror movies. I would put it up there with the likes of Suspiria for the prettiest horror movies. There are so many scenes and images throughout this film that I would love to freeze and put on my wall. Mario Bava was a set designer before he was a director, so he loved to show off his sets. And the set here is very pretty. And the pretty look of the film is a good contrast with the kills. While these kills aren't the bloodiest kills, they are very effective. Very well done. They're beautifully shot. The colors that you see throughout the film are mixed in with the kills, which makes it hard to look away when the characters are being murdered. And then we have Blood and Black Lace's influence on the slasher genre. Now, Giallo movies are already known for influencing American slasher movies. You can see that in plenty of movies. Bay of Blood, for example, also by Mario Bava. I'm a fan of slasher movies, and I'm fascinated by proto-slasher movies and slasher movies that came out before Halloween. Now, I love Halloween. It was my favorite horror movie for years. It has since dropped off a bit, but I still love Halloween. But it bugs me that so many people for so many years have said that Halloween was the first slasher movie.
Halloween, the night he came home.
Halloween and Friday the 13th were the movies that popularized the slasher genre and created the slasher boom that we saw in the 80s, but there were many movies that came out before Halloween that were stepping stones for the slasher genre. Some of them were slasher movies, some of them were not, but they were the building blocks that created the slasher genre that we know and love. The 1960s was the decade that truly created the slasher genre, or at least created the building blocks that would become the slasher genre. Yes, there were movies that came out before the 60s that influenced slasher movies, but the 1960s was the big decade. I think there are 4 movies that were the biggest influences for the slasher genre. Psycho is the obvious one, and then Peeping Tom, which came out the same year, 1960. Then you have Blood Feast by Herschel Gordon Lewis, which came out in 1963, and then you have Blood and Black Lace from 1964. What is every slasher movie about? A killer, sometimes in a mask, sometimes without a mask, sometimes the killer is known, sometimes the killer is unknown, but you have a killer killing a bunch of people in different ways. Blood Feast was the first splatter flick and the first gore movie. This is the film that introduced gore effects to horror. You have this man going around killing a bunch of people to take their body parts for an Egyptian feast. There you have it. A killer killing a bunch of people in various different ways. And the very next year you have Blood and Black Lace, which is about a masked killer in a house of high fashion killing a bunch of models in different ways. Blood Feast had an unmasked killer, and Blood and Black Lace had a masked killer. The masked killer is a huge part of the slasher genre. Look at Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. Of course, Psycho and Peeping Tom are huge influences on the slasher genre, but both Blood Feast and Blood and Black Lace have a clear line to the slasher genre. Both films have good body counts, and both films have a variety of different kills. This movie feels like a classic. It has that feeling of an old classic movie. And it's always interesting. There are some slower moments that could have felt like padding, but because of how pretty the set design is and how well the cinematography is done, it's never boring. Mario Bava knew how to make slower moments interesting through visuals. And the mystery is intriguing, all revolving around this diary and this unknown killer. I will admit that the mystery does kind of take a backseat to the visuals, but it's still interesting. And of course we have Cameron Mitchell in this movie, which will make genre fans very happy.
What was she like? She was rather lively. Perhaps lacking discipline. Nothing seriously wrong with her.
Blood and Black Lace is a must-watch for Giallo fans, but of course if you're a Giallo fan, you've probably already watched it. As someone who loves to study proto-slasher films, this one is one of the best. I think slasher fans should check this one out just because of the influence that it had on the slasher genre. I think you'll find it interesting. And with that, let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. We've got a body count of 7. The kills consist of, but are not limited to, strangulation, smothering, torture by burning, and being killed with a weird-looking knife. It reaches the Giallo requirements with gloved hands, beautiful locations, and painful kills. The mystery is good. It does take a backseat to the visuals, but it's still a good mystery. This is a beautiful looking film. The colors, the set design, the cinematography make this movie hard to take your eyes off of, even when someone's getting killed. The kills may not be the bloodiest, but they are well done and they do stand out, especially with how they're filmed. As a fan of slashers and proto-slashers, I find this movie fascinating, seeing the elements that would be used in the slasher genre. And Giallo fans will like this, since it was one of the earliest Giallo movies. I'm giving this a 4.9 out of 5. It's one of the most important Italian horror movies by one of the most influential Italian directors. As always, I want to thank all of you for continuing to watch and support this channel. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite proto-slasher movies, whether they be Giallo or from any particular subgenre. This is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. High fashion.